What's up, guys? Welcome to the line change. And while we wait for our guest, Rob Williams, some breaking news for the Vancouver Canucks has happened within the last 30 minutes, as the Vancouver Canucks have signed forward Vitaly Kravtsov to a 1-year, two-way contract. So that is pretty big for the Canucks. Definitely not something that I was expecting today, more or less. So go ahead and let me know in the live chat what you guys think about this signing by the Canucks. And of course, as we wait for Rob to make his appearance, we'll just talk a little bit about that. Maybe talk a little bit about what the Canucks have done so far this off season, and maybe some other topics as well. So I'm just gonna look and see if there's anything else going on. Let's take a look at this. Why not? I was going to do a video on this, but why not? We'll just talk about it here. Let me just bring it up. Where is it? Let's take a look at this. Now, this is an article from our friends at Canucks Army, and it just talks about, tells us a closer look at the Anaheim Ducks, the Canucks Pacific previews. Oh, Rob is here, so let's get him on. Everyone, here's Rob Williams from the Daily Hive, member of the PWHA. How are you doing today, Rob?
Hey Tyler, I'm great. How are you?
Good, you? I just mentioned to everybody, Canucks made that signing like 30 minutes ago. Vitaly Kravtsov, 1-year, two-way. What are your initial thoughts on that?
Surprised. I knew he was an RFA, but kind of thought we'd kind of seen the last of him, in Vancouver. So, he obviously was the traded for Will Lockwood a couple of years ago. Played less than 20 games for the Canucks. Didn't really do a whole lot. Goal and an assist. Then went back to KHL, and I think myself, like a lot of people, kind of put him out of my mind. And then he's coming off a big year though in Russia. He was top 10 in goals, top 10 in points league wide in the KHL. And he was a ninth overall draft pick by the New York Rangers once upon a time. So he's got the pedigree. He's obviously got some talent. But it's always difficult to predict how success in the KHL is going to translate to the NHL. They've got him on a 1-year, two-way deal, so low risk. Maybe we see him play NHL games next season. It'll be I think just another interesting name at the very least to follow going into training camp.
All right. So I kind of did my questions out of order because of that, but I wanted to start off with, I always ask this, what's your favorite hockey team?
But my favorite and least favorite hockey team might be the Vancouver Canucks. They break your heart. They cause you stress and angst. But no, I mean that's the team I've followed. I've followed since I was a kid. So I have to go with the Vancouver Canucks. Maybe it'll be the PWHL Vancouver, the yet to be named Vancouver women's hockey team at some point.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a favorite player, either currently or from the past?
Yeah, I guess growing up, my guy was always Trevor Linden. He was the guy that had the poster on the wall. He was I was 12 years old when the Canucks went to the final in 1994. So I was always a Linden guy more than a Bure guy. But I mean those guys and Kirk McLean were obviously those are the players that I grew up watching and when the Canucks got good in the 90s.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a favorite moment or memory?
Yeah, I mean, for talking Canucks history, I mean, there's a few, right? I mean, I think it's '94 and it's 2011. 2011, I was still, I I had started a blog, but was very much, I wouldn't say I was a member of the media quite yet in 2011. So still very much had my fan card. I mean, I was at the game when they slayed the Dragon. Burrow scoring that goal. I mean, that was incredible. Um, Fun fact: in '94, I mean, like I said, I was 12 years old in '94. The Bure goal, I didn't see it live. I was in Australia on a family vacation. My dad was from Australia, so we were on a family vacation. So I didn't even see the Bure goal. So for me, the one that stands out that year was Greg Adams scoring to beat the Leafs to send them to the Stanley Cup final. And I remember the call from Jim Robson. It's like the Vancouver Canucks are going to the Stanley Cup final, and I remember 12-year-old me couldn't believe it. So that might be the one that really stands out for me, where it was like I cannot believe they're going to the Stanley Cup final. So yeah, those would be the ones that stand out.
Speaking of Canucks history, I asked this for everybody, and I think it's a pretty interesting question. I'm always intrigued by the answers. What's one thing you would change in Canucks history?
Getting over the hump against the Boston Bruins 2011, right? Like back to comparing 94 and 2011. Like 94 they lost in 7 games, but it was a totally different feel to 2011. 94 they were a bit of a surprise team that year going to the final. They were very much the underdog against the New York Rangers. They got down 3-1 and battled back to make it a 7-game series, and only lost by a goal and almost made the comeback in game 7. They had a rally for them at BC Place. Like everyone was immediately proud of that team. Whereas 2011, it's almost like this shame. I mean, I think that people are, we celebrate the Sedins and Burrows and Kessler and all the guys on Luongo, all the key members of that team are still beloved in Vancouver. But man, that 2011 final really is a pain point, because that was Vancouver's year. Like they were the best team all year. They had the best power play, the best penalty kill. They were loaded throughout, and they entered that final as the favorite. And I think it's really, really, disappointing that they weren't able to get it done. They choked. I don't know if they choked or what, but they didn't get it done. That was their year to do it. They should have done it, and they couldn't get it done. So I think, for me, that's the one. 2011. That's the pain point that I think will stick with Canucks fans for a long time.
Yeah, that's definitely at least one of mine, and that's usually the usual answer that I get. How did you get started covering the Canucks?
Yeah, I alluded to it a little bit earlier, but I started a blog. I was a blogger. Started it in kind of the early days of the blogs, when there were a bunch of little independent ones. So it was robthehockeyguy.com, and just sort of did it casually for a few years. Right up until 2013 was when I kind of got my big break, when Daily Hive, it was called Van City Buzz at the time, came calling and asked me if I'd write a weekly article for them. Quickly, the weekly article turned into, will you kind of run our hockey section? And then, I grinded again for a couple of years, being kind of part-time side hustle, before they said, okay, the Daily Hive had grown, and they asked me to kind of quit my day job, and I did, and become the full-time sports editor there. So, and never look back.
Awesome. Let's dive more into Canucks. Thoughts on what the Canucks have done so far in the off season?
Yeah, they haven't done a lot, have they? I think I think that a lot of times, and this was, I think, sometimes Jim Benning's undoing, was he'd go into an off season and he'd try to hit a home run. I'd try to knock everything out of the park, get it all done. And I think that was what he tried to do with the Oliver Ekman-Larsson trade, where it was like, okay, we're going to get rid of all these bad contracts in one trade. We're going to trade our top 10 pick. We're going to bring in OEL. We're going to hope that he turns it into an all-star defenseman again. We're going to do all these different things. And, but I think you can really make a lot of mistakes in an off season. And I think that was, there's a lot of I think there was a lot of landmines set up for the Canucks this offseason. One of them, I think, was letting Brock Besser walk. I was convinced that was going to be a mistake, and it looked like they were just going to let him walk and try to figure out something else in free agency or via trade. And that never made any sense to me because there wasn't a lot else available via free agency. Besser was the best guy that you were going to get to come in that was UFA. And I think that, by bringing him back, I think that was a positive move. I think the loss of Pius Suter hurts, particularly because they haven't replaced him yet. They're paper thin up the middle. They're relying a lot on, first of all, you've got to rely on Elias Pettersson to bounce back. I think he will, but you're still hoping a little bit on that. And then you've got Philip Hedl. We know his injury history. He's, is he a number 2 center? I think he has the potential to be, perhaps. But again, wishing, hoping. You've now got Teddy Bluger as a third line center. Is he a third line center? He's probably more well suited to be a fourth line center. And you've got Atu Ratu, who could take a next step. He is coming off an injury though, so there's a lot of uncertainty there. He's never done it in his career, so you're hoping and wishing. There's a lot of hoping and wishing involved with this Canucks team. Even extending to Thatcher Demko in net. How is he going to fare? The most prominent acquisition, Evander Kane. Let's see how that works out. It's going to be interesting, right? Drama has followed, and controversy has followed Evander Kane throughout most of his career. His supporters would say that his time in Edmonton kind of turned things a little bit, and that he's grown up a little bit. I guess we'll find out, right? It was a puzzling move for a team that just wanted to calm the waters to bring in a guy like Evander Kane. But I do think it has the potential to work out for them. He was very good for the Oilers in the playoffs. Maybe didn't have the best Stanley Cup final, but throughout those first 3 rounds, physical power forward, he can hit, he can score. I think he gives them a bit of swagger. I think it's something that they could certainly use as well. Hopefully he works well with his teammates and everyone gets along and they're able to pull the rope in the same direction. But again, that's a bit of a risk. There's a lot of uncertainty with this team, but I'm glad that they didn't trade away their first round pick for for an underwhelming return. I think that was another worry. So the things I was most worried about them doing, they haven't done, and they at least brought back Brock Besser. So how do I feel about the offseason as a whole? I'm not sure. I think I'm sort of stuck in the middle. It's underwhelming, but it's not a failing grade either. I think that this is a team it's going to take some time. I don't think they're going to be able to wave a magic wand and fix things all in one offseason.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Here we go. On that note, do you think they might make 1 or 2 more moves before the start of the season? Could you see them maybe making a in-season trade?
Definitely. I mean, I think Patrick Allvin's never shy to pick up the phone and pull off a trade. So I'm sure he's trying to acquire a center. Is that Marco Rossi? I think it could be. I guess we'll see, right? I don't really see an obvious path. That's probably the most tailored path for them. But Minnesota's not really in a spot where they want to give up, where they're looking to acquire draft picks and prospects. They're trying to win right now. So I don't know that there's necessarily a straightforward trade to be made there. I would be surprised if he doesn't make some other move before now and the start of the season. I think Jack Roslovic is, that's a name that's been talked about a ton. The Canucks have apparently had a lot of interest in him in the past. That seems like an obvious one, doesn't it? To add, if you're unable to find a real upgrade at center via trade, why not bring in Roslovic? You could probably get him on a pretty good deal now. He's had to wait until August, and there have been no takers for him in free agency. Maybe you get him on a 1 year, 1 year $3 million deal, 1 year 2.5, something like that. Would you go for that for Jack Roslovic? I think, there's questions whether he's, it sounds like he's better suited as a winger than as a center. He has the capability to play center, and I think you need some guys that can kind of flip flop back and forth, like Pius Suter did. Right, Suter was penciled in as a center, but when the Canucks were in the playoffs, he was a winger on their top line, right? And I think Roslovic might be a guy that has that capability where maybe you can play on maybe you can play on Pettersson's wing on a top line, but if you've got an injury up the middle, you can play third line center. So maybe that's a guy, not a perfect fit to solve their problems, but I think that kind of serves a need. It seems like a fit to me, and if management was interested in the past, I think that's it doesn't take too much imagination to draw a line between those two.
Mm-hmm. And actually, on that note, someone in the live chat had a pretty good question in regards to that. Just pull it up. Honestly, we have top 3 goaltending and defense in place. If we can somehow manage to get McTavish or Rossi, what do you see as the outlook? Do you think we need a legit 2C? Green thinks we do.
Yeah, I mean the goaltending is the big question mark is how healthy is Thatcher Demko? If Demko's healthy, then I totally agree. They are loaded in goal. I think Kevin Lankinen is a high end backup. I think on some teams he could be. If he was in Edmonton, he'd be their starter, right? And if you've got Thatcher Demko healthy, I think Demko is a top 5 goalie in the league, certainly top 10, right? So I think that if you had that, you'd be feeling great. Yeah, I mean McTavish would be great to get. I think that would cost a lot to get him. I don't think Rossi's going to be cheap either. These guys are they're effectively number 2 centers right now, and they are former first round draft picks. In the case of McTavish, a very high draft pick in his draft year. So you've got guys that have already established themselves at the NHL level. They're still quite young. Those are expensive ads. So how do you add those guys in, and yeah, you feel way better about the Canucks' chances because you've got guys that can step in right away, be a legit number 2 center, and also have potential to be even better than that, right? Like McTavish has the potential to be a number 1 center, right? Rossi maybe perhaps as well, right? Those guys could become that someday. So if you have those guys in the fold, okay, now, yeah, all of a sudden now your ceiling's higher than it was before. Certainly higher than if you're rolling in with Teddy Bluger on your third line, right? Like if you've got Hedl and McTavish or Hedl and Rossi, you're feeling a lot better about things. The big question for me is what's it going to take to get them? These teams are not they're not in a rush to give these players away. So you're going to have to give up. Like in the case of Anaheim, perhaps they'd be more willing to take prospects, but what prospects do they want, right? Like McTavish is a better prospect than anyone that the Canucks have to offer. So I don't think offering Lekkerimaki and a second round pick, that's not going to get it done, right? So I think that those are guys that you've got to. I mean, you got to pick up the phone. You got to inquire on the price. But they just seem really expensive ads, particularly McTavish. I don't see McTavish happening. I think that's and not without them really taking a big swing. You'd have to give up a lot to get a guy like that.
I agree. This actually leads me into my next question. How realistic do you think an offer sheet is for the Canucks when it pertains to Rossi and or McTavish?
I roll my eyes at offer sheets. I pay very little time. I spend very little time thinking about offer sheets. I know it's kind of a fun summer tradition with fans and media as well. But we just see so few of them, right? And it's okay, so to get someone on an offer sheet, you have to overspend so much such that the compensation going back to that team is going to be worth their while. Plus, you've got to spend so much money on the player that salary looks so unappealing to that organization. I think I have more time for it when you get really creative, like the Blues did, getting Broberg and Holloway away from the Oilers. In that case, you've got a cup contending team, and you've got that maybe doesn't value young players, young assets as much as another team might. They're interested in winning right now. So if you can overspend, at least in that team's eyes, on guys like that for a team that's right up against the cap, I think you have a better chance of doing it. So for me, you've got to get really creative. There's got to be special circumstances before you can, get players, off the, get players into your organization via an offer sheet.
Mm-hmm. What are some of your expectations for this upcoming season? In particular, you spoke about Elias Pettersson earlier today, and obviously, of course, Thatcher Demko. Just what are your overall expectations for the season?
I'm fascinated to see how it all shakes out. Like I said, this is like the season. I don't know what their official slogan is going into this season, but it should be like wishing and hoping, because that's what we're doing with this team going into the season. Does Pettersson bounce back? Can Demko stay healthy? Can Heedle remain healthy, and what does he offer for you up the middle? What kind of impact is Adam Foote going to make behind the bench? Are they going to be they've been, I would say, a well-coached team under Rick Tocchet. Is that going to continue with Foote, who appears to have the respect of the players, but his head coaching resume is awfully thin, so we don't have a ton of body of work with Foote. How are the vibes? I think there are a lot of things that could break Vancouver's way. Like if you get Pettersson bouncing back and you get Demko back to his level, like if those guys return to the levels we know they can be at, and we've seen them be at, this team could for sure be a playoff team. I certainly think they could be a playoff team, and I think a lot of the things that are, some things that are going to change this year that they had to deal with last year, the vibes are going to be way different this year, right? Like that Miller Pettersson drama sparked up almost immediately, according to reports last season. So they were dealing with that throughout most of the 82 game season. Okay, what happens this season without that distraction, without that rift in the dressing room? What can this team do? Particularly if Pettersson really bounces back, and I feel like him having he needs a first good week of the season, doesn't he? If he comes out and struggles out of the gate, the pressure ramps up. I think he could do himself a lot of favors by having a really strong start to the season, and I think that all of a sudden changes the outlook of this team going forward if that happens.
Mm-hmm. I did a video recently. Wanted to get your input. Do you think Canucks have the top 4 defense in the Pacific?
I'd have to look closer at the rest of the Pacific Division, but I mean they've got the best defenseman, don't they, with Quinn Hughes, and that means they have the top pairing in the Pacific with Hughes and Hronek. I think that you've got Marcus Pettersson showed that he would be that he is a top 4 defenseman. I think he fit in perfectly. He was the exact right type of player that the Canucks needed at that time. I think both on and off the ice, he's brings leadership qualities to the team. Tyler Myers is another year older though, right? I think that there is some questions there. I think he's had a strong last 2 seasons in Vancouver after being kind of the whipping boy with fans. So Tyler Myers, I think, is a guy that, okay, can he hold on for another year as a top 4 guy? But yeah, I think you'd have to say that this is probably that's probably, yeah. I mean, they've got Edmonton beat in their top 4. They've got Calgary beat certainly in their top 4. I think that you can go down the list in the Pacific as I'm thinking on the fly. Yeah, I think you can make a really strong case for the Canucks having the best top 4D in the Pacific for sure.
Mm-hmm. Another well, I don't know if it's a question, but Green in the live chat, I thought this was pretty good. Better odds that Quinn wins the Norris or gets his best friend Norris traded here?
Well, they tried once before, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
When before Ottawa traded him to Buffalo, the Canucks were reportedly in on Josh Norris. Yeah, I mean, it feels like this season is Operation like keep Quinn Hughes, right? Like, what is it gonna take to keep him? Bring one of his close buddies to Vancouver. Will that do it? I don't think New Jersey's gonna trade either one of his brothers here, so you have to think of the next best thing. Maybe hire his dad as an assistant coach or something like that. I don't know if that will do it. Joking, of course, but yeah, no, I think yeah, probably win the Norris. I think he's him and Makar are the top two defensemen in the world. Hughes was well on his way to winning one last year before he got hurt. So I think if the Canucks make the playoffs and Hughes is playing like out of his mind like he was last season, I don't see any reason why he couldn't win the Norris Trophy.
Mm-hmm. Just looking at some more from the chat. Oh, this is a good one. From Green again. Would you gamble with trading our first for the McKenna draft or somehow protect it? That would have some really high value. I guess he's referring to
Yeah.
McTavish or something.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think you do want to put some protection into certainly, if you miss the playoffs and that pick ends up becoming the top pick in the draft, I think you want to put some protection to avoid that doomsday scenario. I mean, can you imagine? Like, it's just, I think whenever the Canucks trade their draft pick, if there's any kind of if there's not protection, people's minds immediately go there because we've seen Canucks luck over the years, right? So, yeah, I think you would want to put some protection into that. I would be very wary about trading a first round pick. I mean, you have to get a guy like McTavish or something like that. Like something, it better be something good if you're going to be giving up a first for it because, as you know, I keep talking about wishing and hoping, but like, what if it goes? I think Pedersen's going to bounce back. I think Demko. I mean, we'll see how healthy he is. He always seems to be banged up. He's probably going to be healthier than he was last year. But what if he isn't? What if he has an injury early on and it nags throughout the year again? What if this is something chronic he's going to deal with the rest of his career? What if Pedersen struggles in the first month and is snake bitten for a while? Like these things, the alternative is possible too. What if they have injury troubles, right? What if Pedersen starts off great and gets hurt, and now you got Teddy Bluger as one of your top centers? Like, there's a lot of ways that could go off the rails as well. So I'd be very wary about trading a first round pick in what's supposed to be a very good draft, even if it's not even if you're protecting the first overall pick, which I think would be a no-brainer. What if you're giving up? What if that ends up being a top 5, top 10 pick? Now you're in real trouble. So I think if I were the Canucks, I'd want to have a little more assurance of where my pick is going to be before I think about trading it.
Hmm. On that note, do you think they might have a big deadline? I know people talked a lot about this past deadline. No, they didn't really do anything. They stood pat. Do you think they could have a bigger deadline depending on where their season is at come deadline?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, I think it really depends on how next season plays out. Like, are they sellers at the deadline or are they buyers, right? Certainly could go a couple different ways. If they don't spend the extra cap space that they have on their books right now, suddenly that cap space grows and you're able to maybe potentially bring in a big name at the deadline. That's provided everything goes right. Everything goes wrong, they might be sellers and they could be in a totally different position. So yeah, too early to tell for me right now, but anything's possible. Anything's possible, especially with Patrick Allvin as Canucks GM. I mean, he's a very entertaining. He's not a great quote, but man, does he makes moves, right? Like he does his talking with trades and signings. It never seems to be boring in terms of player transactions since he's been their general manager.
Mm-hmm. And one final question, which is a good one from a regular from the podcast, Swerve and Urban. Who is Rob Williams? Sum yourself up in 5 words.
Just 5 words. I usually spend, usually need more words than that. I'm a very lucky man. I'll sum it up like that. But I love what I do. It's a ton of fun covering sports for a living. Love digging into all the minutiae about the Canucks and other sports for my job at Daily Hive. So yeah, very lucky man. There you go. 3
There you go.
words.
All right. That is 30 minutes. I know you said you only had 30 minutes. So thank you very much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Of course, yeah.
Great to have you on. Hopefully we can chat again, maybe during the season or maybe next off season. So once again, thank you very much for doing this, Rob. And hopefully Canucks can pull one out of the hat this upcoming season.
Hey, it's like the Ed Willis book. Like, they're never boring. We know that
Mm-hmm.
much. It'll be interesting no matter which way it plays out. But yeah, thanks for having me on, Tyler. Have a good one.
You win. All right. Well, that was Rob Williams. Hope you guys enjoyed that. A little bit of a late start, but that's okay. As always, if you guys like this video, this interview, go ahead and hit that like button. If you want to stay up to date on all your Vancouver Canucks content, be sure to smash that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you don't miss a single video. You can find and interact with us on social media. You can find us on Facebook. Just search The Line Change. You can find us on Instagram at The Line Change. You can find us on X at Line Change Van. You can find us on TikTok at the TLC Podcast. You can also find us on Blue Sky at The Line Change. Feel free to give us a follow on all of our social media platforms. If you prefer an audio version of this podcast, you can find us on both Spotify and Apple Podcast. On Spotify, feel free to give us a follow as well as rate and review us. It is, of course, greatly appreciated. And I want to give a big shout out to my sponsor, Gassy Jack Art, maker of that incredible artwork you see there behind me. And you guys can check them out yourselves at gassjackart.com. The link is right there. There will also be a link to Gassy Jack Art in the description down below. You guys can also check out Rob on social media with the link in the description down below. Once again, thanks for watching. Go Canucks go, and I'll see you guys next time.